Ago. Amen. Ago fiha. Amen. Impenisi enyo baako fo na ne nanane abrewa. Anso na nasa asu yi abrewa tia ho ebi anka me na chiriba. Nti na metumi hu ka se penin be company nsem ofra beto na nsesem ne aka nyina wonyame nsem shadows will find their places on the walls. They say a man can only be as true as his mother tongue. Timpeninsi oba obeche no ye moni sumai. A child who will live long needs no charm. I'm a lonely dreamer traveling to distant homes to nurse my germinating journeys and to see my adventures as fruit for my daring. I remain that jubilating fruit swinging the visible joys of a breezy day. I am still that hefty tongue of conscience housed in the cheeks of time awaiting the next eternity to speak light to this chaos of the world. And all I realize, say I shall see your body, and you see cantuma de sasa sinfini, Edim Badrim Bamme, and was senum tanaho. Nti efrayem mapom mane nananum sa simbichiri wiase so a omfamra abode nyina credo se de tie bia ye be sane nyansapɔ no badwemem fam na asase o mama ko agya bi ho fase wo hia me bisa menyanko nsem bisa menyansasem we ye Ghana ho anwensem kakra bi emo akwa
and yes, make some noise for Nana Asase. Good to see you.
So good
Have
to
a
see you
seat, have a
again.
seat.
Thank you.
I'm always blown away by how you're able to just stand on stage and blend the local language with the English language and still, you know, be one of the best poets that we have. How long have you been doing this?
25 years.
25 years?
Yes.
As a poet?
As a poet.
Wow. What led to you discovering this talent of yours?
What led me to discover this? Bella, thank you for that question. It's important that you acknowledge the back without which there is no front. So thank you to my parents, grandparents, teachers, everybody who taught me up to the point where I got into GHS1. So in GHS1, Uncle Fritz Baffo was running Sincerely Yours.
Yeah.
So I'd watch a lot of Sincerely Yours. I listened to a lot of Komla Dumo, a lot of Ejaku Nimo, watch a lot of TNT classic movies, watch a lot of National Theatre productions.
Okay.
And then there was the African Heritage Series by Professor Kofi Anidoho. So IFO had a particular edition with the late Professor Ali Mazrui. They were in Benin, Dahomey, talking about the temple dedicated to the snake and the rainbow god. And there was this particular line. It goes like, Dahomey, the home of the serpent and of the rainbow. I was sitting with my mom, I was like, this voice is deep. I will meet this man before he dies.
Okay.
That's what I told myself.
You were 13 by then?
I was around 11. 11, 12.
Okay.
At the time. I was like, I want the depth of his voice. Komla was the person at the time, God keep his soul. Everybody wanted to sound like Komla. But when I heard Prof's voice, now I know what it was.
Yeah.
It was a divine call at the time. But you realize the man's voice was deep beyond, you know, its texture.
Yeah.
So at night, I'll just get up in the middle of the night. Dahomey, the home of the serpent and of the rainbow. No, I've not got it. I kept going at it so many times over. And then our headmistress, God keep her soul, the late Margaret Henson, Montessori School, Cape Coast, just walks into class, handpicks a couple of us, write a poem for me on books, and that was it. And then I was assigned a little voice who would sit with you and dictate whatever you should write. When he ceases to speak, everything you add will just not fit. And so it came with that consistency of, you know, discipline.
Okay.
Waking up in the middle of the night, writing, practicing.
Wow.
And that was it. But before then, it had been a long life of reading, listening, you know, watching all this by the Fireside series. A lot of learning.
When did it become a professional thing for you? Because I know you also are a PR.
Yeah, I used to be.
Oh, you used to be?
I used to be.
Okay.
I'm a full-time poet now.
Okay.
It's been 12 years already.
Since you gave up on PR?
Since I kicked everything else. And
to the side just to focus on poetry.
On poetry.
So why didn't you go with poetry from jump, especially after you had realized that that was probably a talent you had been blessed with?
Bella, you realize that as you grow with time, conviction deepens. And so at a point, well, when I was working PR agency, I realized, look, everybody wants their son to be a lawyer, a doctor, and all of that. But in our cultural space, we are almost in a generational crisis. Yeah. Because the old people had conspired with nature to leave when we least expect them to go. So Awuno is going, somebody needs to stay in that gap and be a guinea pig and see if that experiment works, if we really can do this full time. Others had tried, it hadn't worked. Yeah. But somebody needed to dedicate themselves to it to see if it would work. And I felt that calling so strongly. So I was like, gosh, I took a bet with God. Not a bet. We actually went on a pact. I gave him 5 years of my life. I was like, say, I mean, somebody I'm fat. I would never put a pen to paper in the name of poetry.
Wow.
It's been 12 years already.
12 years. So that means that it's been a good decision to make.
I'll quit my job any day to do this, knowing that it will be tough,
Okay.
but knowing that it will be good. Because whichever field you're called into, I'm deliberate about the word call. Comes with training, preparation, and then gradually you're nearing actualization.
Yeah.
So it's very important. Preparation, it's been tough.
Yeah.
But it's been a good learning curve. My walk with God has been the life of a writer.
I see. But someone might assume that, I mean, for the kind of work you do and the literary devices that you put out and all that, you're not necessarily that close to God because it's more traditional. You get where I'm coming
God
from?
respects our culture so much.
Yes.
Yes. That is why you call him in any language and he responds. Otherwise, we would only call him in Hebrew.
Yeah.
But when you call God in Ghana, he will show up. When you call God in Japanese, actually in Japanese, Hashmula told me, it's called Yesu Christo as well.
Oh, in Japanese?
Yeah.
They call me Yesu Christo.
Yesu Christo. When you call Mawu, Mawu will show up.
Yeah.
When you call Isa Messiah, Isa Messiah will show up. When you call Mawu Yehovah, Mawu Yehovah will show up. The names keep going on and on and on.
Yeah.
When you call Dieu, he'll show up. So God respects our culture.
He does.
Definitely.
What have been the most difficult moments for you in honing this talent and making it a career?
Okay. The most difficult moments were taking that decision to say, this is what I want to do, against all odds. Because you're the only one who heard that call which said, move. Nobody else heard it. You know, Abraham having to just get up and leave home, not knowing where you're going.
Yeah.
So I'm like, God, I don't know where I'm going. I'm just trusting you to get me there. And I just take off.
Yeah.
And there are days where I feel I'm not writing enough. I've yet to publish my first collection, but I have quite a volume of
I can
writings.
imagine, yeah.
If I decided to publish back to back, how many years I could just...
How many books could you put out?
So many.
Ooh.
So many.
How many pieces have you written so far?
I can't count exactly, but I should exceed 1,000 pieces.
Over 1,000 pieces?
I should exceed 1,000, yes.
So do you store them? How do you store them? Are they...
There are some I have original prints from.
Okay.
There are some I have soft. I have both hard
And
soft
soft.
copy soft. Some of them are voice recordings. Some of them are even videos that nobody probably has ever seen. And I have all of these records.
Nice.
Some of them are born on the go.
You can get on stage and just...
We could make the spirit of a prophet is subject to a prophet. The spirit of a poet should be subject to a poet.
Yeah, but once you do it, how do you go back and remember, especially for some that are not necessarily recorded?
It came from within me, and right now this show is live, but we're still recording, so I still get my footage.
So you always have
Definitely.
backup.
Backup.
Is Nana Sassy your real name?
Okay. For the purpose of this conversation, Nana Sassy is my real name.
Okay.
Otherwise, when I wear my civilian clothes, I'm Philip Kwame Boachidua Oyinka.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who gave you Nana Sassy?
Nana Sassy was a divine name. However, when I grew up, I found out. When I was growing up, my grandmother, almost everybody around me, kept going Nana Sassy, Nana Sassy.
Okay.
I recently found out my cousin couldn't say Nana Boachi. So she corrupted it to Nana Sassy. However, my final year in uni, I was looking for a name which was Afrocentric because things I was writing versus a Philip wasn't really mixing up. So I started searching. Then he says, the heaven is the Lord's. The earth is his footstool which he has given to man. I was like, okay. Then it simply means I'll go down there and carry the footstool that he'll rest his feet on.
Yeah.
Tinana Sasi, or Mama Koenja Bigo Fasi, footstool bearer of Krum Krum Nana Yankuponga, Ucha Yankuntono, Bomb and
So all this as well, when you're writing, you write it in tree?
Yeah, in tree.
Did you have to learn how to write in tree?
I had to learn how to write in tree. So growing up, we studied Kyapim tree in school,
Yeah.
medical school, Kofi. That's how I learned the Kyapim tree.
Ah.
And then my grandfather had this old Asante Bible where Yesu is spelled with an I and 2 dots on it. The tree script.
So it's Y, I?
No, it's I.
It's just I with 2 dots?
Yesu, I, 2 dots on it. Yeah, it's
I
a bit complex. It's different than the usual you know. So that's how I learned Asante tree with the Bible.
Okay.
And then I moved to Cape Coast. We moved to Cape Coast, Elmina. That's how I studied Fanti. I wrote my BC in Fanti and scored 1 for it. So I have a Kyapim, I have a Asante, I have
And then you have Fanti. So what I displayed earlier, was that anything close to?
Infantino is good. And with the Infantino, contemporary Infantino, was in Melange, and a book Infantino, on what show was it?
That was not a display with her,
no. A nice Melange.
Modern Fante.
I have fruit salad now.
Wasn't crack a crowd one side, eh?
And the Fantankas are a very liberal language.
Yeah,
welcome for Cheddar, are very hospitable people.
That's true.
At Neguen and the environs, a boom there, challenge Fantifon.
Hey, what my fancy, but you're not excited that
We're very nice, friendly people.
Is there even an industry for what you do in Ghana?
An industry? I think we have a group of young people, probably older people who have handed down the baton. They created a certain awareness that this skill is beautiful, it can be explored.
Yeah.
But you realize that most of our forebears were academics. Now you have a group of young people like us who have both the academic edge and are venturing into using poetry for other things. We've used poetry for marketing campaigns. We've used poetry for different purposes.
Yeah.
And so this path has not really probably been channeled or charted here.
Yeah.
So we are in a new, era trying to find our feet. But you realize that by virtue of being a poet, you dovetail into other things.
Yeah.
I run a literary coaching agency and a cultural consultancy.
Okay.
So poetry gives you, the impetus or that drive to enter different fields. So you could call it an industry, but I feel no art stands
on its own.
So it falls into the bigger body.
But what kind of help do you think, poets in Ghana need at this point?
For poets in Ghana? Okay. Let's start with a lot of moral support.
Moral support?
A lot of moral support. Let the parents know that it's a skill that children can make a living off, one.
Yeah.
Two, it's a skill that really opens your mind. It's a skill that is equally as important as any other skill anybody chooses to have.
Yeah.
Let poets be given that recognition. These people are critical thinkers, probably the philosophers of our times. However, people feel, oh, he's a poet, let's just box him. Now, if you have money and you don't have a plan, you're bound to fail. And so let poets be given the proper education in whichever field they choose to enter, and then let them be pushed out there to practice their skill.
Okay.
Let structures be in place and let poets be put into strategic spaces. Do you get it? So where their skill would come of need. Yeah. Otherwise, you can't just leave poetry for the art's sake. It would not really hold so much weight. Then you would be going back to repeating what the academics have done in the past. Yeah. However, poetry is needed in different spaces. In critical planning, poetry is needed in corporate spaces. Poetry is relevant in traditional circles, religious circles, in mediation. People don't realize it, but poetry comes to play in a lot of these things.
So a lot more recognition.
A lot more recognition, and then putting them in strategic places. People should employ the services of poets.
Yeah.
Services of poets. And let's create the right platforms and put poets on so that their voices will be heard. You realize that they mirror society or they refract society. And so you realize that in a few words, what somebody will spend 6 paragraphs, you compress it, which means these are very observant people. Let's give them the right platforms. Before, in strategic state events, corporate events, please put poets on. They come with this flair, this beauty of handling language.
Yeah.
And they sell the nation very well. Make them arts ambassadors, make them cultural ambassadors.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would do a good job selling Ghana and then build a lot of schools under trees.
Build a lot of schools under trees. And make them ambassadors. Have you been made an ambassador yet for any of the sectors or anything at all?
Not yet.
But you're looking forward to that?
I'm sure with time it should happen. But let me get to schools under trees.
Okay.
Whereas they are cramping people in classrooms, we want to have schools under trees where we can think, we can observe and interact with nature, and have the breeze come through. That way we learn a lot more. I play with songs, with different things. Experiential knowledge,
The schools under trees, are you talking about what already exists that many are fighting to get rid of?
We could make use of these trees. Let them put up school buildings for them. When they want to put them through academic, strict kind of thinking, rigorous kind of thinking, that's okay. Put them under trees and give them that liberty to express themselves and let them mind room.
Can they express themselves in the classroom?
We can do it in the concrete boxes, that's okay. But if you give us schools under trees, we could still turn them around for profit, if you get what I mean.
I get what you mean.
So the buildings are very important, let's have them. But schools under trees could also be put to some fantastic use. Back in the day, when we had storytelling sessions, they were not in boxes. You have this space. This is where this proverb comes from. Shadows will find their places on the wall. Bella, you see the lights coming against us. So back in the day, this would be the fire. This would be us.
Yes.
look at our shadows here, down there, shadows on the wall. And so you realize that when the light falls on us, when we are put under scrutiny, everybody will know their level. That simply means when the light comes in, you know, everybody will sit around the fire. The space by which we are measured. And so give us space under trees.
Yes.
And we will make good use of
In
it.
quotes, it should be deliberate. It shouldn't be as a result of poverty.
No.
Because for a lot of the areas,
That's the
exactly.
point.
So more like mini museums.
Why not? Or spaces where people gather. And you realize that when we gather in these art settings, then age does not necessarily become a barrier.
Yeah.
That's one of the few occasions where children are allowed to speak in the presence of elders. That is how elders are able to pass on knowledge to children. If you want to do it well. If it must be done, it must be done right.
Well, it must be done right. I'm just wondering, do you know which kente this is?
This is a mixture.
It's a mixture.
Insansan or Washel.
Insansan.
Insansan is simply a mixture of different fabrics. So you realize that there's not just one.
Yes.
It's different
Insansan.
motifs. Yes.
All right. Nana Sase, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
for
me.
joining me on the show. I
Thank
hope you
you
enjoyed
so
this
much for having
conversation.
me.
And happy Ghana Month again.
Blessed one to you.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been my pleasure
All
too.
right. Well, when we come back, we'll be talking about all the cookathons, the iron-thons. There's been quite a craze for the Guinness World Records. There are people who are cooking for 700 hours, we're told, so many hours. But what really is the essence of this? Are we losing, the main aspects or whatever it is we need to learn from it? Or is it just, one thing that many people are doing just to have fun? We'll talk about that with some special guests. Don't go anywhere.